All right. So earlier today, I finished reading The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. I read this as part of my Criminals and Bad Guys class. What to say about it? I think it's a really good novella. Really interesting. In modern lexicon, I think especially in the U.S. and I assume England as well, that the UK in general, so this is kind of just like a thing that we're all aware of, but not a lot of people actually read it. Right? It's just part of our lexicon of Jekyll and Hyde, of thinking of things as two opposites, which, I mean, it's what happens in the book, but I think that kind of destroys a lot of the subtext that's happening here. I think the most important aspect of this, what the hell is my hair doing? The most important aspect of this gets forgotten about is there's a lot of addiction language used here. There's a lot of really solid comparisons between Jekyll's reliance on Hyde and then also addiction and what that looks like. A summary of the story is basically there's Dr. Jekyll, who is like an upstanding citizen of London. Has never done anything wrong in his life, things like that. And he has basically found out a drug that has allowed him to split his personality off. And he's allowed to continue this really professional, nice persona of Dr. Jekyll, but then he has this evil characteristics that he's allowed to actually free himself from. That's Mr. Hyde. And when he first starts taking this concoction, when he takes it, he would just switch between the two personalities of the good guy, Dr. Jekyll, or all of the evil entities that are in him, Mr. Hyde. And that's really like the whole point of it. However, as the story goes along and it progresses, what Jekyll begins to realize is that, number one, he's becoming more and more reliant, and instead of turning into Mr. Hyde every once in a while, and getting his pent-up frustration out, he is now doing it more and more, and eventually gets to the point of where he is turning into Mr. Hyde when he's like falling asleep. So like the concoction no longer just is the thing that's causing it. It's just he's changing into Mr. Hyde whenever he falls asleep or things like that. And eventually it comes to the point of where Mr. Hyde is his real personality and Dr. Jekyll is the thing that he has to take the concoction for. And then eventually the concoction no longer works and he's permanently stuck as Mr. Hyde and then commits suicide. So that's really the whole story of what's happening here. And because context is important, Robert Louis Stevenson is writing this during a time in England in which basically they're finally restricting narcotics and things like that, and getting to the point of where only doctors and chemists can prescribe narcotics, which then leads in this whole thing of now the people that are supposed to be the best of us are the only people who have like actual access to narcotics, as well as the people that are affluent and wealthy now have access to narcotics, which now makes it like a high class drug. And that's really the time that Robert Louis Stevenson is writing this in. That's the entire background of this, is that he's warning against this turn and the possible addictions that can come from this, because now only the good people, because they're wealthy and affluent, have access to narcotics, so it's no longer a common person drug. I think in modern terms, the best way to explain this is high class society has cocaine and then lower class society has crack. From what I remember from many years ago, taking health and drug and safety classes and whatnot, they're chemically the same thing. It's just that the concentration and how it's made, and then how you ingest it, right? Those are the big differences. So it's like that sort of deal in which, like, this is the high class thing now. So only the best of the best are supposedly have access to it, right? That's the actual story. But yeah. This book eventually goes on to really spawn a whole thing of a whole study. I don't remember the name of the research area, but it's basically what is good and what is evil, things like that. This is really the novella that spawns that. It's not very long. This version is only about 90 pages. I read it about an hour and a half. Nothing I don't think really stands out on it, besides really that addiction language, which I think is really important to fully understand, because I think that idea gets lost in our modern lexicon of how we talk about the book, and talk about the characters. Anything else from me? I think that's really it. Really good read. I do actually recommend going and actually reading this book, even if you have an idea of what the story is. Obviously the twist is ruined because we're all aware of it. More of it's written kind of like a gothic horror style. But yeah, let's see. I don't even know where I'm gonna put this book in my bookshelf. I think I'm gonna have to rearrange my book. I keep saying I'm gonna do it, and me thinking about this out loud, I think what I'm gonna start doing is separating, not kind of by genre, but kind of by class of what I read it with. And then I'll probably just put them in order that I read them in. I probably won't try to rank them on the shelf. And then there'll be a separate sections for books I didn't read for class. I don't know. I think this is a solid 7. Really quick read, really enjoyable read. I think you could teach this. I think that would actually be a really good book to teach if you wanted to. But yeah, that's it. That's what I got.